Belinda Jane, it's so great to be back at Heart House in the serenity and the zen of your beautiful healing centre here that you've established to help so many people. I'm always grateful to be here. Thank you for today.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to our conversation. Today is really significant to me when I considered purpose and passion. And I'd realised that it's been a burning question in my own life for a very big part of it, and why I hadn't done things the way I had, and what were the influences that guided me. Purpose and passion is perhaps, if we look at the pillars that we've covered so far in this wonderful series of work, it's pulling together a real theme as to how to have a successful life. We talked about money, time, love, energy. We then moved into the second tier of family, intimate relationships. That was powerful. And today, we talk about purpose and passion. I don't see it as a second tier. I see it as being as elusive, perhaps, as money, time, energy, and love. Understanding what it is and connecting with it. And with that in mind, I'd like you to begin our presentation today, this conversation.
Purpose and passion is our final screen. You know, you're standing at the centre and you project out in three different directions upon three different screens. So the family screen, the intimate relationship screen. You find yourself placed, projected on this final one. What is our purpose and passion? What did we come for? What brings meaning? And it finishes the work completely. And the way that you are throughout your life will change, obviously, depending upon whether you drop inward to find your meaning, purpose and passion, or whether you project outward and allow the things that punctuate our life to move you in that direction. And both of those ways, and a mix of both, are perfect and right for you and your soul story. But there's not a single person on this planet breathing now that has not come in with something to bring, something that lights them up. And again, we've been often waylaid, and it's not been the central focus for many people's lives because, again, they're just wanting to get a job. They're just needing to work, or they're listening to what schooling said or their parents said, or, you know, tertiary education has said in order to be successful. Those things don't necessarily bring us meaning. They don't necessarily allow us to find what our purpose for being is. Why do we come? You know, so I will say to people, and in fact I've etched it inside our middle child's bangle this year. We all wear bangles right from when they're 1 year old. And this year her message is, this is what you came for, right? Because she's going to be the executive director of the work and taking it into the world. So when she's overseas and missing me, she can hold on to that and know, okay, I want to be infused actually with my reason for being. This is what I came for.
You know, you're in good company when you speak about the calling that we have, that we've been brought here to accomplish. Jordan Peterson says it in a very similar way. In fact, he's more emphatic about it, and he says that once you know what you're doing, do not spend another day of your life not pursuing that, because you have he calls it a God-given obligation to contribute and not just waste oxygen. And, you know, he speaks in those very strong terms. But your opening raises a lot of questions to me, and I'm hoping that we can pick through some of those. The conflict between, first of all, having an inkling of what our purpose and passion is when we're younger, and then having a blueprint that we've been taught by, let's say, parents, family, schooling, education, society, establishment, the money system, about how that goes. I mean, is there room for purpose and passion? A young person would feel conflicted about that. I know I did.
I feel when I began work 35 years ago in my practice, if I'd have said to people then, what did you come for? What's your purpose and passion? I'd have been met with a lot of blank faces, because you did what you should do. What, again, as Jordan would say, obliged to do. there's something quite different about it in our work. And these days, when I say purpose and passion to people and they look at our blueprint, they recognise over time that it needs to be front and centre with every decision and choice that they make. And the other thing, if it's a personal pursuit that doesn't serve others, where there's no contribution and service involved, that self-service, in my view, over the next kind of 10, 20 years is going to be outmoded and outvoted and phased away. And we're actually going to, as I serve myself, again, our infinity symbol, as I serve myself, I serve others. And that it will be synonymous actually with what we're called to do. And your soul, right from the beginning in your soul story, calls you to it. And you feel it, the truth tingles going through your body. And what happens when we focus on it is the money, time, energy, and love pillars balance just by divine design around it. Because we, the struggling artist mentality, I can't do what I love because I won't get the money. That's an illusion. It's not the truth. Actually, your purpose and passion and financial gain is supported by you doing what lights you up. As he says, that God particle is alive in each and every individual, no more than others. It's the people that have the confidence or feel worthy and deserving to pursue that. And I will still say, as long as it's not only about self-service, because we're parts of a whole and the holy. So if it also in intention is to serve, is to contribute, right? There's many great stories of cultures that put the baby in the middle of a circle, a crawling baby, maybe a toddler, and they have like an abacus, a fishing rod, a book. Think about all of the things, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, all the things that are synonymous with a certain trade or profession or something that they bring to life. And they plop the baby in the middle and the people all stand back, not looking at the child at all, and the baby will go around and be drawn to something. They're all, I guess, in prayer around it or probably clearing their minds. And every time the child will choose. And so what would happen in those ancient times, say they went to the fishing line and they're not a fishing family, they would either give that child to someone on the coast or the family might relocate. Like, it was really considered in those cultures to be so pivotal with your soul story or your life story that the child already knows, and something will awaken in their cell set to steer them toward it. And if something happens in their soul set steering them away from it, they'll start to feel unwell. They'll start to feel lacking in energy, lacking in life force. They'll feel unfinished in their soul story. And I'm seeing that more and more now. They may go through a double degree. And I've had lawyers and doctors and, those famed professions coming in and saying, I am so miserable. I am so spent. I feel so unfulfilled. And then I have these beautiful mothers. All I wanted to do from 17 was to raise my babies, right? And I feel completely soul settled. This is what I came for.
I hear my 16-year-old son and his friends speak, and they talk about the future and what we do after school is, when you finish school, that's those sort of questions. And invariably some of them, in fact, all of them except my son, lean into, well, I want to do this because that's where I can make more money. That has nothing to do with what you've just described, which is our deepest connection with life path. And when I think about that, I think, well, the people who have the courage, the artists, and they don't need to be artists, but I'll use that as an example, who are outside of the conventional expectation, who step outside of that and who have the courage to say, no, this is what I do. I sing or I dance, and there's nothing else that I would even consider doing. And money doesn't come into question there. So the people who can bridge that, and as you say, the money comes to them. But is that confidence, is that what you say, feeling worthy, and having a self-belief and having a feeling of self-worth that there's no doubt in their minds that that's what they're going to do, and they pull that off. I saw my brother do that. He's had an incredible career, and I was always envious of that. And I thought, why don't I have that? Well, I understood that I was chasing the wrong things, but it took me a very long time to know that. So, with that in mind, how do we change? How do we encourage our children? Because it's frowned upon, and to make matters worse, the predictions of AI will mean that the value that we place on knowledge is going to zero. So, are we on a path of first principles as human beings in terms of our consciousness?
We're going to drop back into meaning, right? Because the mundane that people would consider perfunctory is going to be handled artificially. So I've really struggled with this because I'm not a big fan, as you know, of AI. But if the things that are the everyday and the commonplace can be handled with that, why would we not look at the opportunity then to drop in? And, when you're talking about the children, I believe that they need to travel. I believe that they need to go into themselves and their soul and not be searching outside. Like I hear a lot of coaches talking about you've got to find your purpose and passion. It's as if they've got this long journey to externally, whereas I know and I understand it to be actually quite a short journey internally. And you find it sitting there, just waiting, tapping its fingers, should you choose to look or not, right? It's always there. And it waits. And we were talking about time. That's what time's for, to unfold the things that are not aligned and divinely designed so that you go, I'm not doing that. This is what lights me up. This is what I came for. So it's not the search and journey outward. It's the short search and journey and connection inward. And you feel it, you sense it. And then I believe with our work, once you start to look for it inside, little messages in the cell set start to doors open on the outside, and then you move in that direction. So I'd like children right from school to be allowed to pursue the thing that lights them up when they're little, when they're in their littleness. Because a lot of parents would maybe say, oh, they don't know what they want. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. You only have to look at a 7-year-old or a 14-year-old dancer or singer or writer or somebody that works with their hands, a craftsperson. They were drawn to that thing very, very early on, right?
To me, this comes back around to the money episode, because what I'm hearing is that if you follow your truth, what would prevent you from doing that? Fear. Well, where does fear come from? And it's the same fear that keeps you in lack, right? If you have fear of taking a risk professionally, if you're in a job that you hate, and you're resentful around the amount of time that you spend doing that just to pay the mortgage, but what would really make your heart sing is to be a surfing coach.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to do, and you want to bring the joy of the ocean to young people. What would prevent you from doing that?
But that's what's going to happen moving forward. But here in the way that you said that, they bring that to many. It lights them up and then they ignite many. There's the contribution and service clause wrapped around it. It's not about self-service. That's where the life is extinguished and the deathbed kind of, gosh, I wish I'd have done that. What a sad last sentence that would be. And I have heard the elderly say, gee, I wish I'd have given that a go. I always wanted to do that, but my parents dissuaded me. Or they told me at school I wasn't smart enough, So that listening to the external has set us awry somewhat. And when we teach our young to listen internally, how does that feel? How would that feel to you? And then you give things a go. I say to my adults I'm working with, trying is lying. You either do something or you don't. But in our young, everything you do is trying. Right from your first step, your first words, first time you put a spoon in your mouth, you're trying, aren't you? So in the littleness, I want them to go out and seek what lights them up. Is it this country? Is it this person? Is it this book? Right? It's not necessarily the way that we've always measured success can only be 25% financial. Because if we look at it all 100% financial, our health will suffer. And we know that 99% of dis-ease is caused by people being stressed, unhappy, unmet, disconnected from.
And our home life suffers, our relationship with our children suffers.
Because we're not happy fundamentally. You know, you speak to happiness, and I often say to you it's a trite word. I prefer contentment. But the thing is, the sparks are lit with happiness and joy, aren't they? They're kind of like they draw us. It's like our path then becomes lit up with the torches of the things that we feel good about.
It's what makes you smile in the morning when you think about the anticipation of doing that in that day. Let me go somewhere else for a moment. You've seen thousands of people, and you've taught hypnotic. That's part of your work. It's a foundation of your work. Yeah. It's where you get to the truth. What's the consensus from most people of the stumbling block? Is there one thing that stops them from living their perfect self-expression?
Purpose and passion is the same as the other two, and we've spoken to it, but I'll say it again. It's if you feel worthy and deserving of that fulfilment, of that level of yourself being connected with, and then you show and you shine and you share. Often people dropping into hypnotic will be surprised. They will say, oh, I had no idea that I would go there. But they go in with a gay abandon because there's no screen there. There's no parent there. There's nothing that can mark and measure them but their self and their God. And you know, when I say that, is the generator, organizer and deliverer of your highest good. So it's you speaking to your own soul story. There's no one else there. And I'm just there clapping my hands because their eyes are closed and watching them in awe of themselves and the magnificence that they are and what they can bring when they just get out of their own way.
And what you describe, I've experienced that, and that's wonderful. But then you walk out the door and you have to go back into your life. Now, you talk about time, and I'll put it to you that when you've invested time in your life as a man or a woman in order to get somewhere, wherever somewhere is, and then you get to that point of reckoning, and I've been there, where you realise that that's not where you want to be. That takes an enormous amount of self-belief, courage, truth, honesty to then speak that truth, to say, this is not what I want. This is what I want, and I've denied myself that. How do you make that transition when you're so invested in mortgage, private schools, a partner who won't necessarily be delighted by the news that you've come home from this fabulous therapy session and realise that, you know, your life is on the wrong track?
It sometimes takes a breakdown to break through, right? Yeah. And again, I will say, if a man or a woman is only pursuing for their soul self, solely for themselves, then they are more likely to be unhappy than someone that comes in and says, I feel this through my cells. I would love to share this and show this and shine this and help others in contribution and service. That's the direction, purpose and passion, or our work, let's say, without having a negative connotation around it, is moving to. And if you don't, when you break down, start to break free, because that's what breakdown is for, so you break through it. That's why if it's medicated, they don't get to the point of what the message was underpinning and underscoring what that breakdown was all about. It was because something wasn't balanced. Something was missed, and they feel unfinished. So their health suffers, their relationship suffers, their family environment suffers. Always.
You've just described the person that is self-serving. What about the person who is the other end of that? Who's really given up their own personal desires in favour of their family or their partner, husband, wife, children, and so have gone all the other way and really deny themselves any personal gratification or growth or development in favour of being in service of those people.
If that's the man or the woman that they are, that will still bring them joy. If their central heartbeat and frequency to find peace is bringing that safety and security to their family and their home, and they go to bed each night and go, I'm a good man or I'm a good woman, then that's their purpose and passion. So you can place it in our Sacred Seven anywhere and any way you want to. So it's not like they're putting their soul story aside. This is their soul story if it brings them that health and contentment and more than enough. I'll always say to people, more than enough energy, more than enough time, more than enough love, more than enough money. So they can then tip it a little bit toward the abundance. So if a man or a woman is sacrificing themselves, that's a very different story. But then they're not living their purpose and passion. And it would be obvious and clear on the first meeting, because they would say, I'm so miserable, I'm so unhappy, I'm so unfinished, I'm so unrealised, unfulfilled. So then that would be the screen that we'd be looking upon. So if I had that magic wand and you could do whatever you wanted to do to balance these 4 pillars, what would it be? They'll come to it, or they'll find a way of augmenting where they are and what they're already doing to move them closer to it. And then the interesting thing that happens as they move closer to it, as I said earlier, the doors start to open, because that's what they're talking about. That's what's filling them. There's passion in their way of communicating. Their frequency changes when that passion is involved. So if we look to purpose as being about meaning, and passion as about the external frequency shifting and changing, those two married together is the perfect combination.
This may be a ridiculous question, but are the two inextricably linked, or can they be separate? I mean, for example, someone listening to this, could they say, well, I understand my purpose, but it's not my passion. Is that true, or are they kidding themselves about their purpose?
Yeah.
They are?
Yeah. They go together. If you want the whole story, it's the same as in the intimate relationship one. If you want the whole and deep story, in the familial one, if you want the whole and deep story, yeah, we can live every one of our Sacred Seven in a shallow way, right? And that does sound like a judgment, but that's fine. But if you want deeper meaning, purpose and passion, fulfillment, contentment, then you go in a deeper way. And you construct the stepping stones in a more conscious, aware way. But still always mindful, money, time, energy, love. How's that feeling to me? How's it looking? Am I loving the man that I am? Am I loving the woman that I am?
So pursuing money is not necessarily a distortion if it's in balance with everything else. That's what you're saying. So we can have, it's not incongruent to have, to own a gold Rolex, but still provide purpose. Right?
If it lights you up, I've not ever been one for those things, but I know people that it brings them such joy, and I love that for them. I love it when they get the new car and they feel that way, and they. This is the earth plane. It's the school of all of those things. Nothing is for nothing. Yeah? If that feeling, again, people would say it's a pretense, but it's not. They get in and they feel like a king. Or they go into their home and they've bought something new because of the money and it allows them to rise. So I would never be one to be so presumptuous to say that Rolex or that, when there's thousands of starving children in Africa, like you hear people talking about all of that. But the thing about it is, as we move forward, and we discussed this in the time and money pillar, I believe, there's enough for everyone to have everything, right? It's just been spent and allowed to be spent disproportionately to what our needs and our desires really are. We need the time to be able to settle in and really relax and connect with who we are and what we want and what we bring. And it's a game changer. When I hear people say, oh, I should, when I finish school, when I, do this, I should go to university. I know then their soul story's being snapped.
Therein lies the clue, right? That the passion, you're saying, is sort of a marker as to where the purpose needs to go.
Absolutely.
So if you feel that tingle, then go in that direction, right?
And often those men and women have been waylaid not by their own, but by someone telling them they should. So whether it be someone during their schooling, whether it be a family member, a mother or father, or even a mentor, saying you'd be suited to this or you'd be best at that, and when really it's none of anyone's business. And so someone that's resentful has listened maybe too often to the others, to the shoulds, rather than as soon as that, and that's why our tuning in session is so important. As soon as those opportunities and challenges come, the feeling in you rises, no, that's not for me. Which is 50% actually of every answer that we ever have. No. When we learn to do that, what happens? The yeses become louder too.
It's like the professional women that we talked about in family who followed the expectations, whether that's family, society, got to a point where incredibly successful, where they realised that that wasn't for them. And that really they'd never stopped to ask themselves or to listen to what's inside of them, or felt that maybe society was saying, no, you're not, you need to fit this stereotype in order to have a successful life. And of course they get there and then realise that that's a misleading concept.
And if we, from listening to that and knowing that to be true and seeing it hundreds, if not thousands of times, isn't that then the best reason to not listen to anyone else? Unless what they bring to you lights you up. Yes. You feel through yourselves, yes. And what I would say, what my advice would be to people is it's none of anyone else's business. The same as what those people do is none of your business. Your business needs to be your purpose and passion. Like it's, rather than busyness, it needs to be, how can I make a business out of this? Because I love it.
Yeah, it's a brilliant conversation because now it's bringing up for me intimate relationships, which is so fresh on my mind still. Because if you don't have the intimacy with your partner, I mean, if you live alone, fantastic, right? You don't need anybody's permission or support or acknowledgement or consultation. But if you're in that intimate relationship, that could cause conflict too, couldn't it? Because if you decide that you want to take up a sport or express yourself in a different way or be who you truly are, that takes a lot of respect, and a lot of truth and a lot of courage to allow your partner to express themselves.
That speaks loudly around your soul story. You want acceptance, right? No matter what you do.
Yep.
And with a husband or wife and within a family, if you love, you love. But I will always say, in the centre, those 4 pillars need to be discussed, communicated, and agreed upon. When there's a great divergent kind of, I'm going to drop all of this and go that way now. If you're in partnership, especially in intimacy, that needs to be a shared decision and choice. If the other person's going to be picking up all the pieces, right? They need to be the prime. Be considered first, right? So that's if you, as you say, if you're living on your own, I'll tell you what happens, because we're both there at the minute. What happens is everything in your soul story that's going to need, if there's anything left, to resolve and dissolve within your psyche, and any lessons that you are here still to learn, they are just marking time. They're just waiting until we're engaged again in intimacy, in the one-on-one, really deep communion and conversation, and then those things will come to the surface. And I would say, because we've done, I would hope and trust and pray, because we've done a lot of inner work, that those things would be more gently placed than they may have been in the past, right? Because we're more, hopefully, self-aware. Moving back to flipping us to the purpose and passion I can remember when I knew that I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I went quite a roundabout way of getting there, lived overseas, many countries, did many very different things. But when I came back and I hung my shingle up, as my mother would say, and I began to practice, and I knew I wanted a baby. And when Indigo came, there was nothing in me that said, oh, now I can't do this because I just need to do that, right? What I did was interview, both of us interviewed probably 8 or 9 women for the role to look after her, right? Her nanny. And the woman that we chose wasn't one of the ones that had gone through all of the nanny school and had all of the experience. We chose the 17-year-old that all she ever wanted to do was to have children, raise babies and be present in that person's life. This woman is now 4 children on. She lives locally. Indigo, they're still in one another's lives. You know, we see them often with her children. That's what she came for, right? So, and she will say, thanks to you, I saw how to do this and who I was and what I wanted, and you gave me the gift of Indigo. She was 11 weeks old, but she was in the house. I was still feeding her. I was seeing the clients. It was almost like we'd throw the ball to the next one. She'd throw it back to me. So it's, again, as we talk about, it's aligned and divinely designed. If you're open to watch for it and look for it and feel worthy and deserving of, yes, this is what I came for.
And if you were to ask that person and people like that, do you think you've had a successful life?
I've asked her.
Do you think they would hesitate to answer?
Not for a breath. I've asked her. She was one of my, test cases, I guess, at how that would go. And the most extraordinary mother I've seen, the most dedicated to her children. And those children have thrived as a result of that. Yeah. Safe place to fall and home.
It's just brilliant. And it draws so much together from what we do. I had a lovely evening with my daughter. We watched a documentary that I'd wanted to watch with her for a while, and it was about Michael Jackson. And I only bring it up because I thought it was so synchronous to watch that last night. I hadn't planned it. And what I saw, and I've seen it before, but to witness him prepare for a world tour that was not to eventuate. The detail and what he did, I mean, he showed up to rehearsals and they booked it was like the entertainment centre. It was a massive venue where they actually could develop the stagecraft and all of the lighting, and they happened to document this whole process. He would turn up every day. I was commenting to Annika, he didn't turn up in his trackies and his thongs. I mean, he was on every single day, every moment of every day, and he was electric.
Because it's what he came for. So this is what he is or was. It's the same as when I went to see an intimate night with Sting. My second child was, feels like minutes old.
Namaste.
And we were in the 5th row from the front, and that God force and God particle was moving through that man's body, and everyone was infused because he wasn't just doing what he loved, he was being who he loves. So a lot of people, we've spoken about famous people, and people say, well, everyone can't be famous. Everyone can't possibly find their thing, but they can. And we've been indoctrinated and shifted away from the fact that we actually can struggle more safely and securely into what we came for. It doesn't have to be famous. It doesn't have to be big. It just needs to feel soul settled and peaceful and electric on some level to you. And then, as I said to you, doubly or triply served when it contributes to others, which is the way ahead. No doubt about it.
I know I'm there when afterwards it felt timeless. And when I'm doing the thing, and usually there's no one around, and but I'm just doing something where it feels so connected. And you're right, it has nothing to do with money or fame, or in my case, or acceptance or significance.
Yeah, time disappears. When you're doing the thing, I'll often say to people too, if they're struggling with this, what would you do for nothing? If no one was paying you for it and you could live that paved life, how would you pop those stepping stones down? What would you do for nothing? And the other question that I've heard people asking of late is, and what would you die for? What's so deep in meaning and importance to you, right? And you know what my answer would be, home and family, but everybody's is different. This is the thing that I'm passionate about, and I feel on purpose when I make decisions and choices in that direction.
And speaking of time feeling like it's infinite, that's what these recordings feel like to me. And we're coming to a conclusion, but I want to ask a question which I've been saving for last, because I think it might be a nice summary of the short discussion we've had today. A few years ago, a woman who I know very well happened to mention or confide in me that she had never found the thing that really turns her on. That she's, if I can say this, she's lived a very privileged life. She is a stay-at-home mum. Her husband is incredibly successful, so she hasn't wanted for anything, and she hasn't had to work, and she hasn't had the same obligation that most people in our society have. And yet here she was confiding in me that she was quietly envious and somewhat disappointed in her own life that she's never found that thing for herself. What do you say to people like her? And you must meet them all the time.
It's because she hasn't had to, when you say she hasn't had to work. She hasn't had to bring money to the equation. Right? She hasn't had to. But also what she hasn't had to do as a result of that is find herself. Because all of those things is what arrives you at that place. Right? Those places that are uncomfortable, dangerous, risky, off the beaten track a bit. Right? They're the things. If it's too safe, secure and cushy, we don't ever have to drop to the depths. We've talked about that before. So she hasn't had to, and I would say if I was working with her, and you haven't had to look within either, because all was just provided on the outside. So she would find her answer if she stopped looking on the outside and started to drift gently inward. It would be there. It's there for everybody. There's no one that it's not there for.
There's no one that it's not there for.
Not one person.
So all you need to do is look inward.
Journey inward and find the things that light you up and then bring them.
The series has been absolutely wonderful. The thread that we talked about early on, where I said to you, I think in the second episode, there seems to be a thread weaving through the work as we showcase 35 years of what you've done. There's a thread that weaves through these pillars. They're incredibly insightful, and it's been such a privilege to work with you, not only on in Hypnotic with you, but also presenting this work and really trying to showcase it and unravel it. And yet I feel we've only just scratched the surface. Time, love, money, energy, and it all comes back to the self, doesn't it? All of it, of course, and finding your true connection, your God particle, as we've mentioned. Absolutely amazing. Where to from here, Belinda Jane?
The soul story continues, and next I've been kind of asked to speak to, because the work really has been laid bare now. There's many things that we could deepen, and people can request where they'd like to go with that. But I've been actually asked to have a look at the organic world versus the artificial chemical world, because that's very much in people's minds at the minute. So it takes a little bit out of the work, but yet it's firmly entrenched in the ways that we can find out the decisions and choices that we make in our life around nature and organic versus organic and chemical. So that's kind of where I'm being asked or shown to move now.
Well, you're setting the stage for a roller coaster.
Controversial? Never. Not I.
Here we go again. Belinda Jane, so great to be here, and I can't wait for more. Namaste.
Namaste.